I think there's never been a moment where I told you so that has mattered more than it does right now, because I figured I was done with 1348 Ex Voto, and yet, here we go again. Anyways, what did the Lesbian Night game do this time, you might be asking? Well, they kind of realized they screwed up and completely alienated their entire potential player base by believing that the modern audience would show up to defend them like usual, but that doesn't ever happen really. I mean, yeah, sure, they, as in the Twitter warriors, did at least defend Ex Voto at first online, but then like usual, these people don't play video games, and they definitely don't buy them either, which is clear as day based on those player counts alone for this generational fumble of a release. Now, I don't really want to punch down like this, but honestly, this development studio really tried to call everyone chuds in a really smug way, and then thought that they could get away with it. But then after the dust settled and everything imploded, Sedlio, that's the developers behind this game, released a statement recently on Ex Voto which said a lot that can pretty much be condensed to "we hear you, we want to fix it, and we want to make the game into what people thought it was going to be at release." Hilariously though, despite making this statement like they did, as you're seeing, which comes off as Sedlio trying to be neutral and warm and welcoming all of a sudden, which I gotta say, is kinda weird, given the fact that they were smug enough to spit on Knight's Path when it got the attention that it got. They are now realizing, oh crap, the people who liked our posts online, they don't have any money, and they didn't show up like we thought they would. Uh-oh. So now, we gotta cater to the people we hate and fix our game to it. Hopefully, by being neutral all of a sudden, we can convince these people that we hate to come back and buy our game that was, not made for them based on how we promoted it originally. We're not gonna fall for that, by the way, guys. However, hilariously still, as you can also see here on the original post that Sedlio made about this, in case you haven't noticed, those comments, yep, they're suspiciously turned off. Huh, well, that is very interesting. They really said, look, we hear you, we want to bridge that gap and make you love our Lesbian Night game, but no, you can't reply to this and give us more feedback because that is not what we really want. Of course, you can't silence the reposting and the quote button, which is where the real feedback comes in to roundhouse kick Sedlio in the neck for being smug developers who hate the common gamer, as they tried to do and failed doing as well. As this retweet says, this studio started a fight with Knight's Path to dunk on them. They gained all of these likes on Twitter. Then they released a buggy game that was clearly unfinished, barely anybody played it, and now, because of the horrific failure, they want us to come back and buy and play the game now. Sorry, but no, that's not how that works. You played your hand when you attacked the players out here by, dunking on Knight's Path the way that you did. There was no reason to attack Knight's Path at all. You could have just said nothing and moved on. But you decided to turn your entire game into a political statement saying that your Lesbian Night game would be the greatest thing ever, and then it released, and not even your critics could review the game well since Ex Voto is sitting with abysmal reviews. This is Ex Voto's Metacritic, by the way, 52 out of 100 now. I think it dropped another point since I last spoke about this game, actually. I could be wrong, but incredibly still, that user score, man, still sitting at a 1.1. Wow, good job, Sedlio. You really showed the chuds wrong by catering to the mystical modern audience I keep hearing will always show up for these sorts of games but never do. It's cooked when IGN can't even defend you. Look at their review here, a 4 out of 10. They state that the game is bad. Everything about it doesn't serve itself as a positive to the player experience. And then they end the review there saying that 1348 Ex Voto would have been better if it wasn't a video game in the first place. Dude, you know how bad your game needs to be for IGN, right? The lovers of Veilguard and stuff like that, to play your propaganda game and go, yeah, this shouldn't even have been playable. But there you go, Sedlio. You really showed the chuds this time, didn't you? Again, I'm not saying your reviews would have been better if you didn't attack Knight's Path. I mean, the game was still going to be the game that it was no matter what. But I mean, at the very least, you could have had some community defense by just being, I don't know, nice to people who had nothing to do with your game. Why attack? Right before release even? This is why I keep saying this, man. You gotta watch who you hire as your social media managers these days, especially, because those people can ruin your game after all the years of work with a single tweet, dude. Now, granted, alright, I don't know if the person, responsible for these tweets is still at Sedlio or anything like that, but let's just assume that they are, right? If that person is still employed, you guys are crazy over there, because whoever made those tweets, they costed you the house and the farm with their words. I'm telling you, man, if you are selling a product of any kind, it doesn't matter what it is, never attack the paying customer. I don't care how much you want to spew your politics everywhere and get into online fights, just don't do it, man. As someone who's been getting into plenty of online fights in the past few years, it's just never worth it, honestly. And also there's plenty of base game developers that I also know who also just keep their opinions to themselves for this exact reason, and they just make cool games and then let the games as art speak for themselves instead. Because they're not going to publicly state how much they disagree with this thing or the other that people believe in or think, because they know it's not a good idea. So they'd rather just ignore it, right? And that's it. Just release the game and that's all you got to do. I mean, Knight's Path is definitely, they're going to benefit like crazy from all of this when it releases. But that is going to be done by the sacrifice of Ex Voto. And again, saying that you hear all the feedback and hope people check out your game after you attack them, I don't know. That's kind of crazy to me, I got to admit. It's like me saying, sure, I burned down your house, but I was angry in the moment. Come on, guys. I didn't mean it. It's only a house. Surely you're going to come by and pick up my thing that I made, right? Water under the bridge, right? Come on, stop being mad.
Money, please.
No, you played your hand and now it's been dealt. You just got to deal with it now. Of course, you had some defenders like this person who apparently blocked me who said, reminder, this is a studio of literally 15 people and they're still this passionate and responsive to community feedback. Oh, you mean the 15 people who thought it was okay to, I don't know, attack millions of potential buyers on social media? Even another YouTuber, Hero Hey, pointed this out, as you can see here. He brings up the fact that Sedlio refers to themselves as a team of international AAA veterans. That's their words, okay, not mine. So these people, on paper, I guess anyways, should be extremely experienced and great at what they did, yet what really happened?
We're sorry.
You know what you should have done instead? Stopped attacking the paying customer. That's all you really had to do.
We're sorry.
But you can't compare the success of other games to Sedlio, I hear some say. Small teams that are remote can't succeed like others can. Well, that would be true, but it really isn't. Let's have a very, very recent example to prove this wrong, shall we? Remember Slay the Spire 2, that deck-building roguelite game that is seen here on the Steam charts? Hit over 574,000 players at its peak, and still, by the way, has 286,000 people on Steam alone playing it as I write this video? Okay, well that game was made by Megacrit, right? That's a small studio that is also, by the way, made up of developers that also work remotely internationally too. So same thing, right? They don't really have a studio to work at. They all just kind of work from home. Sedlio had 15 developers, right? Guess what Megacrit has? They have about 10 developers. That's right, 10 or so whole devs worked together and made a game that broke 500,000 concurrent players, and they made millions and millions of dollars. Now look, okay, Slay the Spire 2 probably has devs on their team that I would wager that also don't like certain parts of the gaming audience. I would bet money on that being true, actually, but here's the difference. They, as in the Megacrit Slay the Spire developers, don't voice their opinions online. Or at least I hope they don't. And I totally understand that any piece of art, be it a game, a movie, a show, and then some, that there will be someone who worked on it, probably, that won't agree with you regardless on your politics or your beliefs in religion 100% of the time. And I think you'd be stupid to think otherwise, right? That's totally normal to me. You can't expect everyone who worked on some movie or whatever to just be agreeing with you 100% of the time, and Slay the Spire 2 is probably the same way, right? I would wager. Yet the devs there kept their words mostly to themselves. They let the game speak for what it was, and voila, success. And there's a lesson to be learned there. But honestly, I don't think that the usual types will learn much of anything from this either way. You see, the gaming media and then some, they are so hell-bent on trying to filter what people can enjoy or say that they've completely lost the plot years ago already. They really thought that they could survive by not catering to the real people who actually play and buy video games. And just one look at Slay the Spire 2 Steam charts to Ex Voto tells you everything. You can either punch down and get 400 players max maybe, or make a game devoid of nonsense regardless of your own internal politics, and get somewhere like 574,000 players playing it at one time instead over a weekend. Anyone who says they would rather have that 400 player count is delusional and should never be allowed to hold power over any product, because that person is a certified idiot. I will never understand how you can see objectively truthful information and somehow think that it's a bad thing, right? So this circles us all the way back to the thing that kind of annoys a lot of people when it comes to Ex Voto, which is the Steam chart debate. Would we even know if 13 Ex Voto was doing so poorly if not for that information being publicly released? Probably not, I will admit. I mean, yes, okay, we would have the scores, sure, but like the player counts, no. I still think the existence of Steam charts, however, is a net positive. Of course, you'll have users like this one say that Steam player counts being visible is bad and it's doing damage to a lot of games, but I disagree. One user would even clap back saying, I don't think transparency causes damage here. It has shown a lot of people when live service games are about to collapse. It also shows game quality in a way Steam review scores or even worse, the journalist scores cannot. It has also helped show publishers and developers which audiences are willing to vote with their wallet and which audiences don't. That is key. And this user here, this Jade person, would push back saying that they believe that player counts has nothing to do with quality, but actually, no. You see, what that macro art guy said, that is actually the best way to put this. That the Steam charts data being available for all games the way it is right now, like regardless of genre and whatever, actually helps everyone, and that includes the publishers. Because they too can see, as well as all of us pretty much, what is actually being bought and played versus what clearly isn't. Sure, yeah, okay, it does lead to dunking on the Lesbian night game because not many people played it. However, it's also shown how many people played Slay the Spire 2 or say Crimson Desert recently too, right? The point here is that I think the reason why some people might be against Steam charts is because it destroys the facade. It doesn't really allow them to, like, in a sense, live in delusion the way that they want to these days. Because you can't say, well, Ex Voto will find its audience when it barely has one to begin with. What it actually shows is that there's barely even an audience in the first place for that sort of game at all. And if that information is public, which it is, that will now cause future games that will maybe try similar things to Ex Voto to maybe not get funded the way that they would normally. Which for people who want those sorts of games, even though they clearly don't buy them based on the sales data and more, that may be a bummer to them. But if you ask me, it's just the market working as intended. If there were an audience, right, for the Lesbian night game, they would have showed up to play the game, but they didn't. And quality usually does equal player counts, most of the time anyways. If a game is genuinely great, it's gonna soar because of the quality and the word of mouth that it generates, and if it doesn't, it sinks. Slay the Spire 2, having almost 300,000 users daily still on Steam 2 whole weeks after launch, that's no mistake, right? That proves that it has quality. Arc Raiders soaring the way that it did a few months ago showed there's an audience for that sort of game too. In actuality, anyone trying to defend the Lesbian night game can be proven wrong by a simple little thing called common sense. And they probably hate how easy any whataboutism that they have can just be defeated by simply saying, well, the game sold bad and reviewed bad, you can cope all you want because it's true. Unequivocally, right? Like, that is true. You cannot deny that. What it also proves is that what I've been saying for years now, like a broken clock for the love of God, is to stop attacking the audience already. The publishers that are seeing Ex Voto's player counts can easily correlate, right, the lack of players to the way that Sedlio conducted themselves in like a public environment, if you will. Sure, right, they can beg you all you want. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to come back to this. We know what you are, and we're not going to buy into it. And that's the point, right? Isn't it? Like a point where the narrative just can't be held anymore because the marketing just stopped working. The messaging fell apart and it's now just laid bare. And the product must finally speak for itself without any smoke and mirrors around it. And for 38 Ex Voto and Sedlio, that moment came very fast for after them, and it's clear that they were not prepared for that at all.
We're sorry.
You see, what happened with Ex Voto, it's not some random event, right? Like, it's really a collision that happened between what the industry thinks that you want versus what you actually respond to when it comes to your money and your energy and your time. From about 2020 to 2024 or so, I guess even now to some degree, they probably thought that they could carry a product by its messaging alone and eventually people would just accept it, but that didn't happen now, did it? Because when you have that assumption and believe that it can work, that then comes with the risk, because when the experience of the game is not holding up to what you thought it would be, there's really no amount of shifting narratives that can then protect it, right? And that's exactly what happened with Ex Voto. On the surface, it may have been positioned as something that was so ambitious. Oh my god, a medieval single player game? It's so bold, look at it. It's got lesbian knights and bowl cuts. It's standing out amongst the crowd, but the deeper you looked into it, oh, the cracks started to show. People started going, those animations look really bad. The graphics are kind of meh, I guess, and the combat looks kind of bad. And then people played it and went, oh, there's no replay value either. So ambition really isn't enough, especially when your core systems feel underdeveloped. But that's where the disconnect becomes impossible for many people to ignore these days, right? Because while sure, the messaging around such a game might emphasize its importance, people, even the reviewers and the yes men of this game, were probably expecting something different than what they got in the end, right? Like instead they got an unstable, inconsistent game that just didn't meet the expectations set for it. And when that gap exists, right, between what's promised versus what was actually delivered, the outcome is like always almost the same, which is that players will walk away. Now, normally a single game struggling wouldn't mean much, right, in the grand scheme of things. Every studio or game has missteps. It comes with the whole being human thing. But with Ex Voto, like, it matters more because it reflects a bigger picture to me. Because it's the same pattern we've seen where studios invest heavily, not in how much a game actually plays, but instead how the game is going to be perceived. Where the message, as the critical drinker would say, matters more than the mechanics of the game. And sure, that can work to maybe generate attention at first or make a conversation happen. Hell, it can even drive initial sales maybe. But it fails because it can't, and this is key. Sustain the engagement that it needs to be truly something special in the end. It can't even build the long-term trust either because they sold you something that wasn't what was advertised. And it definitely can't survive direct comparisons to any other game that prioritizes gameplay first, for example, too. Like, that's the crippling reality if you ask me, right? That a lot of games they seem to be running into, it's the same thing because these days you got more options than ever, right? You don't need to commit to any one game if it doesn't respect your time or money. People don't need to invest into these systems that feel incomplete or games that look bad or they play worse. They don't need to buy into any one of these narratives when they constantly don't match the reality once these games actually get released. It all comes together to become this growing gap, right, between what the corporations might want and what the players are expecting. And that gap, dude, it just keeps widening. So 1348 Ex Voto, it didn't just lose and fall apart because it was the lesbian night game. It lost because it relied way too heavily on the perception of it, right? It hoped that the message behind it would have been enough to make up for its mechanics. And then it assumed that the audience they craved would follow them, regardless of the quality of the product. But all it really did is just create this foundation that is really, really fragile instead. And it's honestly only one that holds up as long as people keep believing in it with peak delusion and then some. But once that belief is gone, which I mean, come on, there's nothing left to support there now, is there? That's the lesson here. They just keep on forgetting, and from learning from, dude. You can push whatever you want. But once the trust is gone, people don't have to come back. And I mean, how many more bad ideology slop games can the industry survive at this point? Because these results are becoming harder to ignore no matter who you are or whatever it is. They're not staying relevant, I mean the games, right? They're missing the expectations of the sales and whatnot, and it shows that things do need to change now and not later. I honestly wonder if the industry, which has failed to recognize this sort of thing, is finally going to see it for what it is now. Or if they're just going to continue down the same path, which will just lead to more games like this. Because right now, if you were to ask me within 5 seconds, right, of looking at 1348 Ex Voto on screen, come on, man, the warning signs were already there from the moment you looked at it. And this game, this 1348 Ex Voto Lesbian Night game, it just might be one of the clearest examples of this yet. Just stop making games like this. Stop thinking that the mystical modern audience is going to show up for you, because they never do. These people don't even buy games, dude. All they do is just watch playthroughs on YouTube and experience these game stories for free without having playing it themselves, which I mean is great for YouTube channels that, you know, post the full playthroughs and all that. But I guess if you were hoping for those people to come and buy your game, kind of not what you want to be seeing, I'm probably going to guess. I guarantee you that there will be more people that will watch this video than there are people who actually bought Ex Voto. And that's honestly more sad than anything else to me, because as much as I get called this and that for pushing back like I do, I wouldn't be doing this honestly if it weren't as bad as it is. Because at the very least, if you're gonna make your Lesbian Night game, can we at least make it good? Can it at least run well and like look great and play great? You know, I don't know, be a video game first instead of a message? They could have had their slam dunk industry darling here, right? Instead, it's just another corpse we now have to throw on the pile before we end up lighting it on fire again so nobody gets sick, I guess. But the likelihood is, yeah, they're going to keep doing this. People will keep pushing back. And no amount of, we're sorry, please buy our game is really going to cut it. No, you had your chance. You tried to act like you were better than others, and now, look where it got you. The Lesbian Night video game's failure is on nobody's hands but the people who made this game in the first place. And sure, that might sting, but like, the truth usually hurts, right? And the people who make games, they need to stop running away from objective reality, if you ask me. Otherwise, these sorts of things are just going to keep happening time and time again. Like, who honestly thought it was a good idea to make a game like this and then go, you know what we're going to do? Let's attack all the people that will be our potential buyers, because that's going to work out great. Especially considering the fact that, like, you're a new developer. Like, you're not this, like, developer with a bunch of stuff behind you guys already. This is your first game. Your first game out of the gate, and it's failing the way that it is, and you thought it was a good... this whole thing is a mess, dude. I can't believe they thought this would work somehow. I don't know, man. This game is just stupid. I don't know what to tell you, but what do you think? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to. Just stop doing this, man. And a bowl cut? Seriously? Good lord, what a failure, man.